Viewer discretion is advised.
What is happening, YouTube? Cowboy here, and this is the Overpowered build for Dark Souls 3. So as many of you may remember, back with Dark Souls 2 I ended up doing an Overpowered PvP build, and it was so powerful that the weapons and spells from that build ended up getting nerfed into the ground. And while I wanted to do something similar with Dark Souls 3, at the same time I wanted to stay at the 120 meta cap, and I do think I have found the perfect combination to accomplish both of those goals. This build is capable of taking down opponents in a single combo, it has absurd trading and poke potential, and on top of that, the only real weakness of it is it's susceptible to parries if you don't mix up your attack patterns. So let's jump under the hood and show you what makes this thing such a powerhouse. So with the stats, we are soul level 120. The main points of importance here are going to be 10 attunement for our 1 spell slot, 40 strength to reach the soft cap for our heavy infusion, 18 dex for our weapon requirement, and then either 60 intelligence or 60 faith for our weapon buff. Now for this build, you can run either Crystal Magic Weapon, Dark Moon Blade, or Lightning Blade. All three of those are considered in the same tier when it comes to weapon buffs. That being said, I feel that Crystal Magic Weapon and Dark Moon Blade tend to perform better. Lightning Resist comes from Endurance, and since everybody in the game ends up leveling Endurance, I feel like, in general, you end up fighting enemies that are weaker to magic more than you fight those that are weaker to lightning. So, of course, with that in mind, you're going to want to go to 60 on that stat, and that is going to get you the best bang for your buck without forcing you to sacrifice too much. Of course, our Vigor and Endurance were at 25. Those ended up getting boosted up by the Prisoner's Ring, and we also left our Vitality at base, which was also boosted by the Prisoner's Ring. The class we used for this was the Warrior, though you could do this quite efficiently with the Knight as well. Jumping over into the equipment, of course our weapons are the Goddard Twin Swords at +10, and we have the Heavy Infusion. Between Heavy, Refined, No Infusion, and Sharp, Heavy clearly outshines the rest, so keep that in mind, even though they do have a higher dex requirement. In our offhand, we're going to have a Court Sorcerer Staff +10 if you went the Intelligence route, or a Yorshka's Chime +10 if you went the Faith route. Now, it is interesting to note that Yorshka's Chime does have slightly higher spell buff, enough so that using Lightning Blade or Dark Moon Blade with Yorshka's Chime and 60 Faith actually ended up giving me 9 more attack rating when looking at my stats. That being said, 9 AR isn't going to make or break a character, and since Concords are a complete pain in the ass to farm, at the end of the day I ended up going with Crystal Magic Weapon over Dark Moon Blade. Additionally, we are going to have a simple Estus +10, and a lot of people have been asking why we go for simple infusions on these, and that's because with simple you will slowly regen FP over time, and the way the game works is when you go to cast a weapon art, it simply checks to see whether or not you have any FP, not necessarily if you have the total cost needed. So as long as you have 1 FP, you will be able to execute the weapon art using your Goddard Twin Swords. Moving on to the fashion. Fire Witch Helm, Silver Knight Armor, Silver Knight Gauntlets, and Silver Knight Leggings. And all in all, I gotta say, this is probably one of the best fashion combinations in the game. I'm a huge fan of it. I think the Fire Knight Helm really pulls it together a lot more than the actual Silver Knight Helm does, which is really long and skinny. It just kind of seamlessly integrates into the armor. As for our ring choices, you're going to want a Havel's Ring +1, the Prisoner's Chain, Chloranthy Ring +1 or +2, and then the last ring is up to you, though I would suggest Leo Ring. Another good choice, of course, is the Hornet Ring, but the reason I like the Leo Ring so much is that it strengthens thrust weapon counterattacks, and that text is actually a little bit misleading. It's going to strengthen any thrust counterattacks, not necessarily thrust weapons. And our rolling L1 is a double thrusting poke. So, with the Leo Ring on, if we were to do that when an opponent is attacking, we're going to see counter damage in the range of 600 to 700 damage while buffed, which, needless to say, can be incredibly brutal. Some other points I do want to make with this build. As I mentioned, the main weakness of it is parries. Being that you're using twin swords, people are going to want to try and parry you all day. So it's important to note that the base L2 weapon art, the spin, is not parryable. The follow-up attacks from going L2, R2 are parryable, but that spin is not. So you can go for a double spin to throw off people, mix in some R1, L1s, and change up your attack pattern, and as long as you are smart about when you attack, especially with delaying after your rolls just a little bit, you should be able to avoid parries and deftly dismantle your opponents. So as this is a PvP build, the focal point of the video is going to be PvP, but of course I wouldn't feel right without showing you how quickly it can shred a boss. So we have the Dragon Rider armor on New Game Plus. Let's jump on in and make a mockery of this guy. Taking big hits there. Trading back big hits in exchange. Always fun to see how a PvP-oriented build will do in a rather annoying boss fight. And down he goes. By my sword, another enemy has fallen. So with that being said, now it's time for the PvP. So let's go jump on in and show you just how devastating this build can really be.